Kia ora, good evening and welcome to Central News for Wednesday the 11th of June. I'm Wayne Douglas. The Bay of Plenty Regional Council has announced it has accepted a resource consent application from the Astrolabe Community Trust and will publicly notify the resource consent process within 5 working days, meaning the public will have the opportunity to make submissions on the application from Friday the 13th of June. Deputy Chief Executive of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, Eddie Grogan, says the council has established a standalone website, that's renaresourceconsent.org.nz, to provide all interested people with all the information they need on the process, including the application itself. Mr. Grogan says due to the importance of this process to the people of the Bay of Plenty, they have decided to double the normal period for submissions from 20 working days to 40 working days. This means people will have until Friday the 8th of August to file their submissions. The owner of the RENA has indicated it intends to request that the application is directly referred to the Environment Court, and if that occurs, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council will still receive submissions and will assist the Environment Court in its considerations. The Waikato District Health Board Population Health Service has received an increased notification for measles in Hamilton, with a significant number associated to Fraser High School. Waikato DHB Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Anita Bell, says information about measles in Hamilton has been circulated to the media already, but with the recent increase, it's timely to remind people again of the signs and symptoms and to check their child's immunity status. People who are regarded as not immune to the measles are people younger than 40 years old, born after the 1st of January 1969, who have not had 2 doses of the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, or have not had a laboratory-confirmed positive measles result. Also, children over 4 years old who have not received their 2nd dose of MMR, and infants under the age of 15 months who have not received their 1st routine dose of MMR vaccine. Fraser High School students have been asked to stay at home if they've not been fully immunised for measles. Taranaki woman Susan Munt, who's aged 43, was the first recipient in New Zealand of the world's smallest cardiac monitor at Waikato Hospital. Ms. Munt underwent the procedure in one of Waikato Hospital's new catheterisation laboratories and said while she was feeling a little nervous before the procedure, that was over in a matter of minutes, and just hours later she was feeling completely normal. Experienced cardiologist Dr. Clyde Wade, who performed the operation, says it will help clinicians in their efforts to help prevent the high number of arrhythmia-related events, including cases of death in New Zealand, through detection and appropriate treatment of heart rhythm disorders. The banks of Oronga Lake at the University of Waikato were teeming with onlookers last week as over 30 student-built model boats battled it out as part of the annual University of Waikato Engineering Design Challenge. Each year, convener of the Foundations of Engineering paper, Dr. Rob Torrens, organises the boat building project for all first-year engineering students who test their designs in a series of elimination races across the campus lake. The fan-propelled boats compete in races around a course which tests their manoeuvrability and whether they can last the day. Team Argentina won the final battle, which came as a surprise to first-year engineering students Sukhit Pal Singh, Matthew Gerbich, Hamish Nicol and Campbell Ray. So well done, guys. And taking a look at the marine forecast now for Thursday for the west coast, Raglan southeasterlies 20 knots rising to 30 knots for a time late afternoon with rough seas. Your high tide is around 9:04 in the morning. Easterly, that's on the east coast, Tauranga, northeasterlies 30 knots changing to a southeasterly 25 knots on Thursday. Your high tide is at 6:32 in the evening. And just ahead, 100 years of history in one building. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. Many might argue that community halls are a thing of the past, but the Waihau Community Hall is still going strong and will celebrate its 100th birthday on Sunday. Hilary found out some more.
Welcome to the program, Les and Jennifer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, it's been 100 years since that Waihau Community Hall. Tell me, is it the original building or have there been a few?
There haven't been a few, but there has been an earlier building which was built in 1880 and became the school, the church, the community hall and the Sunday school for the whole district. And after a while, that became so full of bora that they virtually abandoned it and built the new hall. It was actually taken down and burnt before they brought the church out and put the new church, or it's the undenominational church which is there now. And that's across the road from where the present hall is.
So that's the original building since 1914.
This is the original since 1914.
Well, it must be with Historic Places Trust, surely.
No.
No.
We've dodged the suggestion because we wouldn't be able to play with it if they got a hold of it.
Good thinking. Now, you're having a bit of celebration, though, for this 100th birthday, aren't you? Tell us about that.
Yes, we are. On Sunday the 15th, we're having a church service at 10:30. We kick off, and then at 11 o'clock they'll come across to the hall, and there'll be a mix and mingle and nibbles and drinks, and it'll be fantastic because some of these people won't have seen each other for years, and I mean years. And then we're going to have a luncheon, and prior to that we'll have the Mayor, Jan Barnes, and the MP for Coromandel, Scott Simpson, and the Chairman, etc., and it'll be away we go. And then followed by the luncheon and the cutting of the cake, and the one that's cutting the cake is Kath Stewart, who is 91. She's lived in Waihau and Aotearoa all her life. She still attends our Rural Women meetings in the hall. She's been doing so for 78 years, like our Rural Woman, and it'll just be something else, yeah. And then just more talking, and that's what it'll be all about, and it'll be super, yeah.
You mentioned Rural Women. There's actually something quite special about them, isn't there, with their relationship with the hall?
Yes, there is. Yes, we started off in the hall 78 years ago, and we still meet there. We now have membership of 17. Back then there was probably about 30, and it's just great. They just come once a month for 10 months of the year, and away. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, you guys have been collecting stories and photos of those 100 years and talking about their people's memories and that kind of thing. Are there any that have stood out for you?
Well, I don't know really. There's just so much. It's just been an absolute fascinating.
You remember your 21st and your, your kitchen evening, don't you?
Yeah, but the whole thing has just been absolutely fascinating. The history, you don't realise what goes on just in a hall. And as myself, I'm Waihau born and bred, so we didn't have a hall at the school, so we used to go down there and have our marching and our fancy dress and all things like that when I was at primary school.
Well, thank you very much for both coming in. It sounds like a building with a lot of history.
World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is also on Sunday. There are stories told of people falling over and lying there for days in rest homes. Hilary found out if this is a reality and how much of a problem neglect actually is.
I can tell you that on my caseload, which is about 50 open active cases, about 10% of that would be either neglect or self-neglect. Age concern differentiates between whether someone's neglecting themselves or whether they're being neglected by another. And if they're being neglected by another person, whether that's passive neglect or active neglect.
Self-neglect, what's an example of that?
Someone neglecting themselves, it often comes around when people want to stay at home, but this is where I get involved, when they're wanting to stay at home but maybe things aren't quite going smoothly. So there's often dementia involved, but that's not saying that all of them are. And I'm a big advocate of keeping people in their own homes. So as much as possible, if someone is self-neglecting, if we can put services in around them, maybe helping with their housework or helping with their showering, then as long as that person's safe.
And you advocate that staying in your own home is sometimes the best way?
I'm a very big advocate for it. If my client wants to stay at home and they're safe, then I will do everything I can to keep them in their home. If they want to go to a residential facility, then that's their choice, but it's not something that I push people to do unless there's safety issues.
If someone has a family member that is living in a rest home, they're not happy with that standard of care, is there much that they can do?
Absolutely. They can come to one of the elder abuse services if it's a case of abuse. They can go to the rest home staff. If they're not comfortable with going directly to the rest home manager or the clinical manager, they can go to the District Health Board. They have an interest in rest homes providing the proper care because they're the ones funding a lot of it at the end of the day. There's also the Health and Disability Commissioner who can investigate cases, and they have a health and disability advocate locally as well who can work with people. And there's also the Ministry of Health.
Because essentially we're paying for that service in a rest home, does that give us more say because we're paying?
That's a difficult one. All rest homes have a duty of care, so there's a certain standard that everybody is held accountable to for looking after people. The amount of say that you get depends on how close you are to the person in the rest home. If, for example, you are their enduring power of attorney or their next of kin, is going to be very different than if you're just someone that's been to see them once or twice. But any complaints really need to come from the person themselves or the family.
When we are heading into that part of our lives, what should we be doing?
Well, as I said, we can stay at home. There's a lot more services available. You can have home cares coming in that will do things like help you get your vacuuming done, you know, making sure you're not leaving the stove off at night, making sure the house is all locked up before they leave, helping with showering in the mornings, making sure it's safe getting in and out of the bath. So there's lots of things that can come into the home to keep the person there. The other option is to move in with a member of the family or a friend, and then there's the rest homes and the care villages.
And don't forget you can phone Tauranga Age Concern on 07 578 2631. Coming up after the break, Rise Up Tauranga. Welcome back. Rosalie Crawford of Tauranga saw the need for a place where the community can come together, but online.
Well, it came as a response to seeing the Christchurch, the Christchurch earthquakes happening. The morning after that earthquake, we were looking for our family members in Christchurch via social media and texting and phone. So I've got about 15 family down there. And I was on the internet that morning and I was following the Rise Up Christchurch page and could see that people were asking for help in different areas. So I was seeing that and then texting my sister who's coming up from Fairleigh, going, "Hey Bev, over here in the street there's like a huge block of elderly people, about 40, who've got no power, no water, no toilets, and some of them are disabled and they need food and help." And so I was coordinating from Tauranga here for people from the Rise Up Christchurch page to go to there. So there was one guy who would text me each morning, go, "Where do I go to today?" And so I'd go, "Here's the contact of someone who needs somebody to hand out food out of her van." So he'd contact her and off he'd go for the day and help her. So I thought, this is incredible. You can help, do your bit and help from such a long distance away. And then in the middle of this, Simon Bridges actually phoned me and said, "Look, we've got a Christchurch couple arriving. Someone's posted on my Facebook page, but I'm away at a select committee hearing, not in Tauranga. What can you do?" And because I'd been involved in setting up health and social service database of about 700 organisations in the Bay of Plenty for Linkage Trust, I had a lot of connections and networks already established. So we just put in place a strategy to help that family that were arriving. But also I said, "Look guys, we might need to look at, there might be more families arriving, so let's put something a bit more strategic in place with supports." And so we called a meeting together and we had Red Cross and local church and business people and just got a strategy together where we could coordinate food and furniture and so on. And what we discovered was that all the Christchurch people only had mobile phones that they could connect with each other and family with. They had nothing else, and Telecom and Vodafone were making it free for them to go on Facebook and Twitter. So we thought the best, cheapest, effective way to coordinate people here and to connect with Cantabrians is a Facebook page. So that's why we set up Rise Up Tauranga as a Facebook page, and are able to coordinate hundreds of people, community in Tauranga, and connect with all of these Cantabrians. So that's really why it's the most efficient, effective and cheapest way to do it.
How much has that taken off?
So after that, as a sort of spin-off from the Rise Up Tauranga page, we started Oh, so there's quite a lot of people involved, not just me. You know, there's different ones. We had the Bethlehem Te Puna Lions that actually helped fund. We had a local church, Otomarai Church of Christ, that wanted to put on a lunch for Cantabrians, so they had about $60 in their benevolence fund. They said, we want to do food passes and put on a lunch, we've only got $60. I said, okay, great. And so they set a date and did a poster, and meanwhile, First National Real Estate were collecting furniture, collecting food, through all of their branches from Coromandel through to Te Puke. Heaps of food. They took it, I rang at Red Cross and said, we've got all this food to go to Christchurch. The Red Cross said, oh, we don't want it. We actually need the money. It's going to cost us too much to send in there. And they said, but we've collected it all. What do we do? And they said, well, ring Rosalie. And so they rang me, and I said, yes, actually, we've got a church that's wanting to put food parcels together for all the Cantabrians arriving here. How would you feel about all that food going to, not going to Christchurch, but helping the Christchurch people that are arriving here? So they were great about that, and so I gave them the address. So when we had Cantabrians arrive, a unique situation was that if they were looking to rent a house, WINZ would pay moving costs or bond, but couldn't pay the letting fee. So the letting fee might be about $300 1 week's rent, and just for that amount of money they couldn't move into the house. And so I'd ring up Andrew and say, I'm sending you a family. they need the letting fee. And so this family would arrive expecting to find an elderly old clergyman, and Andrew's was 29, and his secretary Marilyn was, I think, in her late 40s. And so they'd arrive and just start in tears, and Marilyn would hug them and they'd be crying, and because Andrew would give them a voucher for petrol and plus a massive food parcel plus the cheque for the letting fee. So it's quite a unique way that we discovered we're actually building people up. Instead of sending them off to a food bank, we were giving them packs of food or taking them to their homes, and actually just gave people back that sense of dignity, so they could rebuild themselves. And that's what we're about, really, is just not doing things for people, but providing them with the links of where to go to and the help, and then telling them, look, you know, just pay it one day when you're back up and going, you can pay it forward to someone else. So we've had this pay it forward thing going through.
And don't forget, you can visit these Facebook pages. They are Rise Up Tauranga and Humans of Tauranga. Just ahead, news of a new partnership for the kiwi fruit industry. If you've just joined us, welcome to Central News. Kiwifruit Vine Health formalised a biosecurity partnership with the government on behalf of the New Zealand kiwifruit industry by becoming the first signatory of the government industry agreed deal. Hillary found out if it is because of PSA that the deed was instigated.
No, not precisely. The government and even the previous government have been working on this now for quite a long time, so it predates PSA, but the fact that we're the first signatory to the deed is not surprising on the back of PSA, because we now have a very keen focus on biosecurity, and we understand the effects of an incursion like that can bring. It's quite extreme in people's lives. So certainly I think PSA hastened our signing of it, but it's not the reason for it.
And you're looking at introducing a levy to fund the industry's commitment to the GIA?
Yes, we are. Yes, we've consulted industry on that. We have industry support. We have submitted our proposal of that levy to the Minister for Primary Industries, and he is currently assessing that as we speak.
You say the signing's only the start of the process. What do you mean by that?
Well, signing a bit of paper is very easy. Right? It's just a case of putting pen to paper. Although there was a lot of work went into preparing industry for the signing of the deed. In our view, now the hard work starts, because this won't be effective unless people make it effective, and unless the partnership makes it effective. There is no point in changing anything unless the change is for the better, unless it's better than it used to be. Otherwise you may not have even started. So we're very conscious of that. We There's been a huge amount of effort on many people's behalf to get to where we are now, but we think now the rubber hits the road and we have to make this work and make it work well.
What are some of the practical things and implements that this agreement's actually going to put in place?
There'll be, for example, just to give you some perspective, in the readiness and response space, and fruit fly is a recent focus for New Zealand because we've had 2 independent fines in recent times. We are questioning whether the trapping process is A, whether we have enough, B, whether they're correctly distributed, and if so, who does that? And maybe through this agreement, industry and government can partner in having traps distributed more widely, and through the existing industry structures, we could be the ones, industry could be the ones who are checking those traps and recording what's in them. So it's a simple example of something that we think will work. Previously that hasn't been done, it's been purely a government responsibility. We think that why wouldn't we use industry personnel to simply do what they do more thoroughly?
What is Kiwifruit Vine Health and what's your responsibilities to the industry?
Our responsibilities are broadly in 2 categories. So we have a responsibility to manage the National Pest Management Plan for PSA. So that's really focused on PSA solely. We also now have a responsibility for managing the space of wider biosecurity for the kiwifruit industry. So they are separate roles and they will be having a different focus entirely, really.
And now for your weather for Thursday. For Hamilton, heavy rain clearing, which is good news. That's in the evening with gusty easterlies. Your expected high is around 14 with an overnight low of 7. For the rest of the Waikato, the same with heavy rain clearing in the evening with gusty easterlies. Pairoa 16 and 7. Matamata a high of 13 and a low of 8. Tawamutu 14 and 7. And Tokoroa 12 and 8 are your expected temperatures. For the rest of the Bay of Plenty, Tauranga, more rain, heavy at times with gusty easterlies. Your expected high is 16 and an overnight low of 10. For Te Puke, the same with 14 and 10 your expected temperatures. And that's Central News for today. We really want you to be involved, so you can like us on Facebook and let us know your views. Or, of course, you can email us at news@tvcentral.co.nz. Thanks for having us at your place. We'll be back tomorrow night with more guests from in and around the regions. I'm Wayne Douglas.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.